Just say that he's going to be questionable and he'll be another game day decision. But yeah, I think it's going to be the Gardner Minshew game once again against Washington. And, because you're right, Hurts didn't look.
You got your Birds 365 guys here, John McMullen and Jody McDonald. We are joined by our third feathered friend, Ed Kracz, John's partner at Sports Illustrated and a frequent contributor here on Birds 365, enough so to merit the nickname Gameday Kracz, since we usually have him on Friday, getting that much more ready for game day. Hey, Ed, let's talk COVID. Let's not talk about games. Let's talk about the COVID issue. This is not going away anytime soon, is it, Ed?
No, and that's a big part of game day, Jody, right? I mean, all these teams are impacted, and yeah, it's kind of scary that it's come down to this. But Ron Rivera, who the Eagles will play Washington Sunday, obviously, and he was on a conference call this week, and he said a lot of his guys, they feel fine, but they're testing positive, and I guess the NFL has found a way to kind of deal with that. Instead of having to pass two tests now, 24 hours apart, get two positive or negative tests, I should say. Now it only takes one to return to play. So maybe that'll help some of these guys get off the COVID list. But yeah, it's a big issue right now.
Yeah, now they're talking about viral load, Ed, and you got to be an epidemiologist to cover the NFL. And they're talking about, oh, is this guy contagious? Is this guy not contagious? It's a giant mess. But from a football standpoint, they obviously are going to try to get the games in because everybody wants the games in. And we got a playoff race to deal from. And in a league perspective, and look, right now, as we sit here entering Week 15, which started last night with an exciting game, Kansas City continues their run. But Washington would be the final team right now in the NFC side of the playoff bracket. They're 6-7. The Eagles are one of the teams right behind them at 6-7. And if you don't have 21 players or whatever Washington is at this point, that impacts the playoff race. And how do you feel about that from a league perspective? Not just because the Rams are a potential playoff team. Chicago is down all their coordinators right now. Every single one of them. Cleveland doesn't have their head coach and has significant players. All of these will have impacts on the playoff race from the league standpoint. That should they be concerned about that part of it?
Well, we're so far down the road here in the NFL season, and I'm a fan of football myself. I don't want to see it swerve off of the side of the road here into a ditch, because then I don't know what becomes of these games that if they were to have to start canceling them, then what? Then you're probably extending your season, and there is no guarantee that it's going to get really any better, right? I mean, it's the same situation as last year. So even though it's going to impact some of these playoff races and maybe even the playoffs themselves, I think, you try to stay the course for as long as you possibly can if you're the NFL, and you just keep pushing forward and doing the best you can. And, even you could say, well, let's give them each team 5 more guys you can add to your practice squad. I mean, at this point in the season, even that's tough to do. Because, all these offenses and defenses are set with their schemes, and you'd have to come in and really hit the ground running to be effective. So, I think the best course of action right now is what they've done is to kind of pass this new policy that said, okay, we only need one negative test in a 24-hour period to become, eligible to play, and see how that goes. But I hate to see them start canceling games. I think that's really the last resort if you're Roger Goodell and company. So I think it's just going to keep on. They're just going to keep marching forward here, and I'm okay with that.
And I know you guys got a chance to talk to the head football coach of the Washington football team, Ron Rivera, this week. I give him a ton of credit because the work he's got in front of him is off the charts with how many players he's got out with the COVID protocols. He didn't complain once with you guys. And usually there's someone who stands up and says, wait a minute, we as a league are mishandling this. There's a lot of egos in coaching, and I'm surprised that no one has stepped out yet and taken a stance. I guess they all do kneel to the shield. But Ron Rivera seemed like a guy who was just, my task is my task. I'm going to do what I have to do. We're ready to play the Eagles on Sunday. I say good luck to that because I think his task is almost impossible, but I got to give him his props because he hasn't complained and or suggested any changes. He has fallen in line with what the NFL wants to do.
Yeah. Well, listen, Ron Rivera, he walked through the hottest fire an individual can walk through, and that's cancer. I mean, he went through a real big struggle with cancer and didn't complain through that. I mean, maybe he did privately, but he didn't complain through that. And, that positive attitude really helps when you're battling that kind of a disease. So he's not going to complain about this. I mean, he's seen a lot harder, faced a lot harder in his own personal life. And you're right. It's got to be tough for him to coach. I mean, remember when the vaccines became such a big deal at the beginning of the season, Washington was one of the lowest vaccinated teams in the league. And then you heard Ron Rivera complain that these guys, they have to get vaccinated, I mean, and especially for him, he's a cancer survivor. Why would you want to put your coach and your head coach in jeopardy like that? So he did complain then, but listen, he's just going to play the hand he's dealt, which he's done through this cancer challenge that he went through. So, I mean, even if the football team gets some of these guys back, it's just been such a weird week with them having to be away from the facility. They're not involved. Maybe they are virtually. Maybe they're involved in meetings virtually.
Yeah, they have to Zoom it.
So-called walkthrough reps that you need. So even if you get some of these guys back, today or Saturday or on game day, it's going to be a real struggle for Washington to field a representative team, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up because you're right, Ed. Ron was one of the guys who lobbied the most to get his players vaccinated. Because Washington was one of those teams that was dragging its feet, a large portion of them, and he was successful. He had mentioned he's over 90% now. So I think that's one of his frustrations is, look, I got these guys on board. I got them. They did everything they're supposed to do, and now they're testing positive, but they're asymptomatic, they're vaccinated, they're completely healthy, and you're telling them they can't play. That's the part he could have complained with, but he's the nicest guy in the world outside of Pete Thompson, who we had on the show yesterday. And he won't complain. But that's sort of some of the frustration. And you did hear it bubble up. I asked him that question on the conference call, and he said, yeah, guys are frustrated. But he's not going to be one of those squeaky wheel types, and that's good for the Washington football team because they have Daniel Snyder issues, they have all kinds of issues. To finally have somebody in place, guy not hard to root for. People on Birds 365 are not going to like that, but they should remember Ron Rivera when he was here and he lived in Cherry Hill, and he was one that first Andy Reid coaching staff. I'm getting off on a tangent. Boy, that was spectacular. That first coaching staff that Andy Reid had, that is one of the best coaching staffs ever assembled in the history of the NFL. If you look at that thing, it's amazing. And Ron Rivera was a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be challenged to remember all those names, but Brad Childress, I guess, was part of that, and Jim Johnson, and John Harbaugh, it was a good staff. And Ron Rivera was here, but that was so long ago. I mean, there's a whole new, really generation of Eagles fans that aren't going to remember that. But you're right. Ron Rivera is just a nice man, off the field. It is hard to root against him. And when he was going through his cancer battle, man, I was rooting hard for that guy. Obviously, I think everybody was. So, but fans are going to draw the line between off the field and on the field. And when they hit the field on Sunday, they're, Ron Rivera's enemy number one in the fans' eyes.
Ed Kracz, during your time down at the Eagles Central this week, did you have kind of like, where's Waldo? Where's Brandon Brooks? Did you spot him? Did you see him? Has there been any sighting of Brandon Brooks down at the Eagles home?
There has not been any sighting of Brandon Brooks. I know, Jody, I came on last week and I said I had a hunch,
Hunch.
Yeah, people
Listen.
ran with that. Poor Ed, man.
Well, people did run with that, and I said it, and I saw a story I was quoted in, and it says it was a hunch. Okay, it's kind of like you're a gambling man, right, Jody?
Sure. I play hunches.
You play hunches, and I was like playing roulette, man. I put it all on the red 79, and I spun the wheel, and I crapped out. So what are you gonna do?
I like the red 79. Now, speaking of hunches, Ed, my hunch is we're not going to see quarterback one this week, Jalen Hurts. After seeing him at practice yesterday, I don't know, wasn't moving side to side all that well to me. His ankle, his left ankle looked taped pretty heavily. Certainly looked larger than the other ankle. And maybe it was Dallas Goedert who kind of told us the truth. Didn't want to, but kind of said he's not limping as much, basically, which indicates he's still limping.
Yeah.
He wasn't necessarily running between drills, whereas Gardner Minshew and Reed Sinnett were. What's your hunch? You gonna put it on red number 1 this week, or are you gonna take it off the table?
So you want another hunch after I whiffed on my hunch from a week ago?
Yeah, you got to get back right back on the horse.
Exactly, man. Right.
Yep. Listen, hey, look, I'll get back up on that horse, and I do like to play the ponies. I'm a big, I like the horses. So I'm going to get back up on top, and I'm going to say, I think that's my hunch as well, that Jalen Hurts is going to sit this one out again, based on what we saw on Thursday. But there's still 72 hours from Thursday before kickoff, and I'm not sure he'll be ruled out when we talk to Nick later on Friday. I think he'll continue to play this competitive advantage game, I would guess, and probably just say that he's going to be questionable and he'll be another game day decision. But I think it's going to be the Gardner Minshew game once again against Washington. And, because you're right, Hurts didn't look good. I did see him do one of those crazy, grab the ankle back stretches that I used to be able to do in my younger day, reach back and pull that ankle up to the middle of your back. I did see him do that with his left ankle. So I don't know. I mean, that looked kind of like it would be hard to do if your ankle was really killing you, but he did it.
Or you might want to stretch it out if it's really killing you.
Yeah, that's true.
That way.
Yeah, but it's hard to see if he winced because he had the helmet on, but I don't know. But you're right. Dallas Goedert came out and said what he said. That was my implication, or my read of what he said was he was implying that, Hurts is still kind of limping around. So, unless there's some kind of magic healing wand that you can wave over these next, 48 hours now until game time, I'd say it's Gardner Minshew's show again on Sunday.
All right. So if the answer to question 1 is Gardner Minshew starting, let me ask a question 2, because John already answered this in our first segment. I want to see if you're in line with him. I'm not as locked in as John is. Gardner Minshew starting. Jalen Hurts just not 100%. They don't want to risk him going in there and potentially re-injuring himself. He can't play to the best of his capabilities. Let's go with Gardner. Who's the backup? Because if you go with Reed Sinnett and something happens to Minshew and somehow you lose this game to an undermanned Washington football team staff, and Jalen Hurts could have played, and we'll never know exactly what his percentage number of health was, but he'll be asked about it, and people will question whether it's actually truth coming from him or not. Do you take that chance? If you know he's 85% and he could go in and he could keep a lead rather than give it up, do you put him out there? John suggested they'll stay away from that because of fear of quarterback controversy. I have fear of losing a game the Eagles can't and shouldn't lose against an undermanned Washington team. So I think if unless he's like mortally wounded, I got him in as my backup for this week. How about you?
Well, I mean, listen, an 85% Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's obviously a big running threat. How impacted would he be by that 15% that isn't healthy in the run game? I think the Eagles have enough confidence in their run game without Jalen Hurts. Look, they went for another, they went for over 175 yards without Hurts against the Jets when Minshew was in there. I think they would have enough confidence in their run game that should something happen to Minshew, we can put Reed Sinnett in there and we can run the football and we can ask him to just manage the game. We don't want him to do too much, but listen, I think he's capable of completing some passes, if he's not asked to do too much again. So I would probably go with Reed Sinnett. And, listen, Nick Sirianni's got this track record of working with so many different quarterbacks in, the last 5 years now, from Andrew Luck to Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Jalen Hurts, Gardner Minshew. I think I would have enough confidence in him to put together the kind of game plan that if we need Reed Sinnett to come in to play 2 quarters, 3 quarters, whatever it might be in an emergency situation, I can have the kind of game plan ready for him where he can be successful.
What do you think Nick's biggest hurdle is this week, Ed? And the fact that, look, Washington is down 21 players as we speak now on the COVID list, and we don't even bring up the injuries and the fact that Taylor Heineke is banged up, the quarterback. I think they're down to their 5th or 6th center, and it's our old buddy John Toth, who was on the Eagles practice squad way back in the day. Terry McLaurin is probably the one positive. He's been limited, so it looks like he's going to be able to advance through concussion protocol if he doesn't get put on COVID over the next couple of days. Yeah. And J.D. McKissick is still not playing. He's been out with a concussion. He's still not out of the practice. So they have a ton of injury issues on top of the COVID issues. So if you're Nick Sirianni, how do you stop the human nature aspect of saying, oh, we got this one in hand? Because that's the only thing I think the Eagles are battling this week is how do you not take this team for granted? And is it impossible not to have that human nature and say, oh, look what's going on down there. Maybe we can take the foot off the gas a little bit.
Well, first of all, I would remind the players that you guys.
You're a coach, by the way, Ed. You're a coach. Tell me how you do it with your kids.
I would remind them that you only have 6 wins, okay? You shouldn't be overlooking anybody. It's not like you're coming in here with double-digit victories under your belt. You guys have 6 wins. We've had 1 2-game winning streak, and I would kind of knock them down a couple pegs to kind of avoid that. That's kind of what I would do, just to kind of remind them that, hey, we're not the 1985 Bears here. We have to go out and play and win, and every game is going to be a hard-fought game. And I liked what Alex Singleton said on Thursday about, the scariest guy in the NFL is the next man up because, he's the guy that is hungry to play. He's the guy that can maybe provide a spark. He's been in all the meetings. He's been in, all the practices. So he's ready to come in and say, hey, I belong in the NFL. And when it comes from a player like Alex Singleton, who was that player at one point in his career, and you could say he still is. I mean, nothing is ever given to a player like Alex Singleton, even after some success that he's had in this last year and a half or so. He knows what he's talking about. And I thought that was a really good point, is that's the scariest player, is that next man up. But I think we talked about this on Thursday, you and I, John, and, you can say that, but when you have 21 next men up, next man's, there's good English for you. Next men up. That's a big task. Maybe you can do the next men up if there's 5 of them, but 20, possibly 21. I don't think it's going to be 21. I think they're going to get some guys back here. But even if it's half, you still have 11 guys. I think I did that math right. Yeah, half of 20.
Yeah.
11.
Close.
So yeah, even if you get 11.
Like 17 games in the NFL. There's no midway point anymore.
No. And then they pick a great year to go to 17 games, with a pandemic raging. No. And now, look, guys are limping to the finish line here. Week 15, guys are hurt. I don't know. Crazy timing on that. But, I think the next man up thing from Singleton was a big tell. I think that's what you kind of ride with as well. After you knock them down a few pegs, remind them, you guys are 6 wins, man. Not good enough. We can't overlook anybody.
I almost feel badly bringing this up because, as you correctly note, Washington's got 21 guys with COVID issues. The Eagles have 2, only one of which really counts because Mr. Hundley's on the practice squad. But there's a good chance Quez Watkins can't play this week. The Eagle wide receiver position right now is not jumping off the charts because it's Devontae Smith, and your guess is as good as mine. and Quez would be the number 2 guy, and he's not the number 2 right now if he can't go on Sunday. So, again, I feel badly asking this question because the Eagles aren't nearly as handicapped as Washington is, but what are they going to do to replace Quez Watkins if he can't go?
Well, they're going to throw at the lot the number 6 and number 88, Dallas Goedert. That's kind of the game plan. And, maybe you mix in some throws to Rager and, crush your fingers that he catches it. And then, listen, I know they've moved away from Greg Ward, but, he's proven to be an adequate receiver. And if you need him to fill in, okay, maybe you get him some more snaps. Maybe you get him 3 targets during the course of a game. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, dare we say, maybe he gets a target or 2. I doubt it. I think they'd probably go to Ward more. But John Hightower was the guy they protected on the practice squad, so he would be elevated. I saw a lot on my social media sites, a lot of love for Travis Fulgham, perhaps bringing him back. He just got released from wherever he was, Miami, I think.
Miami, yeah.
But,
too late now.
Yeah, and that was earlier in the week, and they've moved on from Fulgham. He just, for some reason, he was a 4 or 5 game flash in the pan, and that was it. So I think where you go, Jody, is you just go with 6 and 88, and you sprinkle in some targets for Rager, maybe Greg Ward, and I'm not sure how much a role John Hightower would play, but he'll be the guy that would be elevated and active if Quez can't answer the bell. And listen, to your point about COVID, I mean, kudos to the Eagles. They've taken a very proactive approach on this whole COVID thing. Now, it probably helped that maybe they were off on a bye this past weekend when this whole thing started to hit. But the flip side is, they could have been out, running around with friends, family, going to parties, going to bars, whatever. But they probably didn't do that. And even Devontae Smith, who said before going up to the Jets game that he was going to be in New York for the Heisman, he even skipped going to the Heisman because he didn't want to be in New York in that environment. So, kudos to the Eagles for taking a proactive approach, getting their players to buy in, to stay healthy. And I just want to mention that they only have 2 guys where that's probably the lowest in the league. Now, maybe there are other teams that don't have anybody, but that's a pretty good number.
Yeah, it is a pretty good number, especially this week. And, I think every coach in this league crosses his fingers at about 4:00 Eastern time. That's when the transaction wire kind of goes through and you see all the names start to trickle out that have been added to the COVID list. The Rams are up to 25. The Washington football team, as we mentioned, Cleveland's in the high teens. Their coach is out again.
Man.
Chicago is down every single coordinator, offensive, defensive, special teams, and they added a bunch of players. It's ugly. And, I almost want to talk about football so I don't have to talk about COVID. So I want to talk about football. I'm going to talk about the defense. The Eagles have made, and by the way, the offense too. And they've sort of put together, as you're wont to do, this demarcation line of, hey, since week 8, this team's been pretty stinking good. And they're like top 10 in a whole bunch of defensive categories. Is it just as simple as, well, pre-week 8, you had Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Derek Carr and on and on and on. And post-week 8, you've had Jared Goff and Trevor Siemian and Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson. Is the improvement just from the talent, or are they getting better?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination, but I do think they are getting better. It'd be interesting to see if the schedule were flipped and they were playing these, the Simeons and, the Joneses and some of these other quarterbacks of the world earlier in the season and waiting till the end to play Mahomes and Brady and Herbert. But it wasn't the case. So, okay, you could have still been bad coming out of that stretch of good quarterback play, but they weren't. They've seemed to kind of have gotten a better handle on what this personnel can do from Jonathan Gannon's standpoint. But there's still some hiccups. This is still an undermanned defense, in my opinion. I know they've improved, but they gave up 3 touchdowns to the New York Jets on their first 3 drives. There's still an issue, I think, with the defense. And even though the numbers look good, and you can make the numbers look however you want, but I still think that this is a defense that could is kind of a house of cards, if you ask me. I mean, they could play poorly. But I liked how Gannon kind of adjusted. He knew how to adjust against the Jets. He made some different calls. That sack that Josh Sweat recorded in that game kind of helped turn things around. And he mentioned that was a play call that they decided to go with. So, I think he's got a better handle on how things go. And that's just part of the growing evolution of the way the season has gone for a new coaching staff. All rookies at the coordinator, defensive coordinator and the head coach are first year in those positions for those guys. So, yeah, I think it has gotten better. And I think some of that is a product of knowing each other, knowing the strengths and weaknesses, et cetera. And another part is the schedule, playing softer quarterbacks. But I don't think it's all of that. I think there's more to it than just that.
All right, Ed, tell me if my theory on the game and how it's going to play out offensively for the Eagles holds any water or not. One of the most favorite topics to talk about here in Philadelphia and has been for decades, run-pass ratio. I'm going to give you a 70-30 split this week. 70-30 run to pass. And that's with if Gardner Minshew starts, a non-running quarterback. The Eagles have been up in that area before, 66, 32 to 1. I'm going a little past that. But they've done so with Jalen Hurts running the football. We don't think Gardner is going to be called for designated run plays on Sunday. So it's going to all be on the running backs to put up that 70% and just keep churning out first down after first down after first down. I think they can do that against this decimated Washington defensive line. Can Nick Sirianni go that heavy-handed to establish and just continue to ride the run to a victory on Sunday?
I like this game plan against the Jets. He had Minshew throw the ball pretty often and early to kind of get the lead and to move the ball down the field. And then he took the air out of it in the second half and ran more, which we have seen him do that in the past when Jalen Hurts was under center. But yeah, I think they'll try to run the ball again. They went into New York a kind of a wounded group in the backfield. Then Miles Sanders ended up with a career high 24 carries in that game because Boston Scott had an illness. He was up, but he didn't do much. Kenny Gainwell's still a rookie. You don't want to give him a whole lot. He did run the ball late, career high 54 yards for him on the ground. But now I think you're going to get Jordan Howard back. He was listed as limited in Thursday's practice, but the time that we were out at practice, he seemed to be doing things pretty well. So that's going to help. And I'm assuming Boston Scott as well. He's over his illness. So, yeah, I think they're good. They have kind of that stable of running backs back again. So you don't need Miles Sanders, who is, kind of nursing this ankle injury that he's had. He re-aggravated it late against the Jets. But I don't think you'll see him with 24 carries, especially if Howard's up and Scott's healthy again. Now you have 4 running backs again that you can use. So, yeah, they're going to construct a game plan, Jody, I think that's going to call for a 70-30, run to pass ratio once again, and they're going to see how that goes.
Eagles love it. So last one for me, Ed, and everybody read Ed and me at si.com/NFL/Eagles, or make it much easier for you, eaglemaven.com. You crapped out on Brandon Brooks. I think you're going to win your money back on Jalen Hurts, but I'm going to ask you to put your money back on the table. Who are we talking about after this game? Who's going to be the star of this game? Because I predictions don't even matter. Jody's going to ask you the prediction, but I don't know who's playing, so I'm going to give you a prediction too. But that part doesn't matter. From the Eagles' standpoint, though, presumably they're going to play this game. Who's going to be the star of the game? Who are we talking about after the game?
Who's going to be the star of the game?
Yeah.
Well, you're right about it. It could be Gardner Minshew. But, I'll go with the running back. I'll go again with Miles Sanders. I mean, he still doesn't have a touchdown. I think they really have tried in recent games to get him a touchdown. I think he's going to get a touchdown in this game, and I'll go with Miles Sanders. I'll say he'll be the star of the game.
Yes.
That's not a bad line of thinking. All right. I'll ask you your prediction on the game. But before that, I've got a question for you. And if you need to phone a friend, a.k.a. your buddy and fellow videoite, John McMullen, he can jump in here and help you. What's a torero?
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Isn't that something that they wear, the hat in Mexico and at the fiestas?
You're in the right hemisphere, at least.
Well,
True.
it is, but I think Jody's going to. That is the nickname of the University of San Diego for star backup quarterback Reed Sinnett.
The University of San Diego Toreros.
Yes.
That's their nickname, the Torero.
Yes.
The
Torero?
Toreros.
Yes.
A Torero could be running the Eagle offense by the fourth quarter with the game on the line on Sunday.
Yes.
Or he could be running the show in the fourth quarter because the Eagles are up 31.
That's true. That's probably more likely.
Yeah. That's
the
a great
mop-up duty
piece of
for
trivia,
Reed
though.
Sinnett is probably more likely.
The Toreros.
I hope that's the case. 3 options. Reed never sees the light of day. Sorry, buddy. Reed gets in for mop-up duty. Yeah, we'll take that. Reed is the man who decides the game in the fourth quarter.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I want to avoid that option. That's why I'm dressing Jalen Hurts as the backup.
Interesting. It could go down that way, but listen, I put my trust in Sirianni that if they need Reed Sinnett, he'll have a game plan.
Well, he'll be ready. Okay.
He's watching Torero film as we speak.
All right, Kracz, on the record. How do you see this going, even though there are 97 question marks to be answered between now and kickoff? That's what we do. We get out in front of it. We don't need no stinking answers. We can use our crystal ball and tell what's going to happen on Sunday. What do you got, the Eagles and the Washington score?
Yeah, hard to pick against, the Eagles coming out of a bye week. They understand what this game means. And then Washington, like you said, 97 question marks. It's hard to see them winning this game. So I'm going to ride with the Eagles. And I think the Eagles, they've done a good job scoring 30 points this season. Have done it in 6 of their 13 games, almost half of their games. So that's the magic number. They're 5-1 when they hit that number. I'm going to call for an Eagles 31-17 win Sunday.
Well, you and I are close. Johnny and I will give our scores later, but I like the fact that you said 30 could be a key. Could very well. Ed Kracz, thank you very much. We'll get you up again next week, buddy. Keep masked up when you're down there next to McMullen because he's looking a little peaked to me today. I don't know what that means, but just look a little.
I'm going to be on Leper Island soon enough, as we say, in the middle of the parking lot.
All right, guys. Have a good week.
Thanks. That's Ed Kracz. Game Day Kracz here with us on Birds 365. All right, and John.
By the way, real quick, Jody, it isn't Torero is a bullfighter. I just learned that. I did not know that.
He said the hat. That's why we said Mexico. That's why I said at least he's in the right stratosphere.
Yeah, I did not know.
Torero is another word, another name, probably another type. Sorry, my Spanish. I've forgotten everything I ever learned in Spanish many years ago. But it is a matador of sorts.
Yeah.
So
I took 2 years of Spanish in high school, 2 years of Spanish in college. All I got out of it is El gato es rojo. I can't even roll my R's, and that means the cat is red.
The cat is red. That's the sentence you remember more than anything else in Spanish?
Yes.
I did. We both had 4 years. I did 3
I can't roll my I still can't roll my R's, Jody.
Did 3 in high school, 1 in college, but we both did 4 years. I can say some things that could.
Can you roll your R's?
I guess you can say anything you want on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Deme su chocha? Do you know what that means?
No clue.
I'll
tell me in the private chat.
I'll have you look it up. And there are some Spanish-speaking guys that are going, man, I can't believe Mac just said that on YouTube. We'll come back here with Birds 365. McMullen and McDonald returning here on Birds 365.